So let's talk about arrow functions in JavaScript today, or what some other people call them, lambda functions. So what is an arrow function? First things first, let's get some context, right? Let's start with a function and let's actually morph it to an arrow function, okay? So to do this, I'm gonna use the filter function of an array. Here I have an array, and I just want to filter every single element that's higher than 0. Simple enough. So if I do ledger dot filter, and this filter takes in a callback function, so I can just define here a callback function, just function, and takes in an element, and we simply return whether our element is higher than 0. And for every element that this function returns true for, is going to get added in the resulting array. So we're just gonna have to take that array here, and I'm just gonna print that result onto the screen just like so. Okay, if I run this, you'll notice I get all the positive numbers. So that's fine and dandy if you know how the filter function works. Very simple. All right, so this is a function, right? This is a simple anonymous function, but we can actually replace this with an arrow function, and it will do basically the same thing. To do this, we simply remove the function keyword, and instead of having here just open bracket, we add an arrow to this, and that would create an arrow function, okay? And that's fine and dandy, but there's not much difference between the previous one and this one. All we need to do is now not actually type in the function keyword, and it's much faster to type in an equal and the higher than sign, and also it works the same way, but that doesn't really benefit us. But there's a catch. If you don't have more than one parameter on your function, on your arrow function, you can simply remove the parentheses for this one. Okay, so if we run this again, well, nothing changes. We still get the same result. So one more thing that you can optimize with the arrow functions is if you have just one single statement and you want to return that statement, you can remove the brackets. Yes, just remove the brackets and remove the return element, and also the semicolon here, because the arrow function will automatically return whatever is in here. So that's still equivalent to whatever we had here, but you might notice that it's actually much simpler. Like all you have to, you can actually even have it on the same line, and it really makes sense. All you have to type in is the parameter, an arrow, and the actual condition. You no longer have to type the return keyword, I mean, the function keyword, and parentheses and brackets. It's just simple as that, and you can still understand what this function, this arrow function, does, right? It takes in an element and it returns this condition, whether it's true or false. Now there are some more differences between an arrow function and an anonymous function, right? But I'm not gonna talk about all of them in this video. I just want to cover one really crucial difference, and that is the this keyword. The this keyword behaves differently if you use an anonymous function than if you use an arrow function. Let me show you. So here I have an object, right? And this guy has a count, right? Simple enough. Then you have increment1, which is a function that should increment this count, right? And then we have increment2, which also should increment this count. So basically each function has the same statements in them. So here I have just the count printed once and then twice, right, after I increment it once. So if I run this, well, of course we're gonna get first 1, that's the initial value, and then secondly we're gonna get 2. But what's gonna happen if I try to change this to a 2? Well, if I run this, you'll notice nothing changed. We just got 1 and 1. What happened? Well, everything's gonna become very obvious if I try to console log this object inside our function. So first let's start with the anonymous function, right? So here I have console log this and console log this. I'll start with the first one. Well, usually, since I'm calling it with the obj at the beginning, I should be getting this object printed on the screen, right? So if I run this, of course I'm gonna get this. It's just an object that has count being equal to 1, and then I get the increment, which is a function, and increment 2, which is another function. Simple enough. But if I do the same thing with the second function, so if I run this, well, you notice that we don't get the expected result. We get 1 and 1, so that's pretty obvious, but we've seen that, but we get an empty object. Why is that an empty object, actually? That's because our this inside this file right here is the same as this inside this arrow function. So if I try to console log this here, right, and then call this increment 2 function and also console log this object, you're going to notice that they both give us the same result, an empty object. And I can even add stuff to this object. So I can say, I don't know, let's say dot number equals 5, simple as that. And if I run this, they are the same, right? So that's really an important difference between the arrow function and the anonymous function. It doesn't get a this, and the this from here is actually the one from where the function it has been defined in. So this has been a really short introduction to the arrow functions. I'm gonna release a few more videos on the topic so that you can better understand exactly how this is actually useful, but keep in mind this is how you define arrow function, and this is one really big difference between the anonymous function and the arrow function. Thank you guys so much for watching. If you have any questions, leave them down in the comments below, and take care.